Imagine a city that has stood right on the water for 1,500 years. Not on the bank of a river, but in the middle of a lagoon. On wooden stilts driven into the silty bottom. Every fall and winter, the sea rises, flooding the streets, squares, and first floors of buildings. People have long been accustomed to this, but today, the water is rising higher and higher. And the whole world is asking the question, how much longer will Venice be able to withstand? And will the day come when it finally goes underwater? Subscribe, it will be interesting. Venice is located on 118 small islands, separated by a dense network of canals. It is located in the Adriatic Sea, in the northeastern part of Italy, in a spacious, shallow lagoon with an area of about 550 square kilometres. The lagoon is separated from the open sea by narrow strips of land that are called lido. Through several passages in these strips, seawater freely penetrates into the lagoon and leaves it, obeying the tides. The construction of the city began in the 5th and 6th centuries of our era. Residents of mainland Italy fled here, escaping from the raids of barbarian tribes, Germans and Huns. The swampy islands seemed like a safe refuge, because enemies simply could not reach the people without boats and knowledge of the shallow channels. Thus, fear and the struggle for survival turned a seemingly completely unsuitable place into the cradle of one of the greatest cities in human history. The builders of Venice solved a task that at first seems impossible. Into the soft, silty bottom of the lagoon, they drove millions of wooden stilts, mainly from alder and larch. These tree species possess an amazing property. In conditions of constant presence underwater, without access to oxygen, they do not rot, but over time turn into something similar to stone. Stone slabs were laid on top of the stilts, and buildings were already erected on them. Throughout several centuries, Venice remained one of the richest and most influential powers in the world. It controlled the trade routes between Europe and the East. Its fleet dominated the Mediterranean, and merchants brought spices, silk, precious stones, and gold here. The magnificent palaces, churches, and squares that tourists today admire were erected exactly in those years of prosperity, when Venice could afford everything. The problem of flooding has always existed in Venice, from the very foundation of the city. However, what was previously a rare inconvenience has over time turned into a constant threat. It is not only about climate change and sea level rise. The city itself is gradually sinking down into the soft soil of the lagoon. This process is called subsidence, and it has always occurred in Venice. However, in the 20th century, it accelerated sharply. In the first half of the 20th century, industrial enterprises began to actively develop on the mainland, in the neighbourhood of Venice. For the needs of factories, groundwater was pumped out of the ground in huge volumes. This became one of the main reasons why the city began to settle much faster than before. According to estimates by scientists, during the 20th century alone, Venice descended by about 23 centimetres. When this was found out, the pumping of water was prohibited and the settlement slowed down, although it did not stop completely. The main natural phenomenon from which Venice suffers is called acqua alta, which translated from Italian means high water. This is a special phenomenon in which the water level in the lagoon rises above the mark of 80 centimetres above the average sea level. It is from this mark that water begins to flood the lowest parts of the city, especially the famous St. Mark's Square, located in one of the most vulnerable zones. Acqua alta occurs during the simultaneous coincidence of several unfavourable circumstances. First, these are the tides, which are especially high in certain periods of the lunar cycle. Second, strong southerly and southeasterly winds, driving water from the Adriatic Sea directly into the lagoon. Third, low atmospheric pressure, at which the water surface is somewhat higher than usual. When all three factors coincide, water is capable of rising very high. The most destructive flood in the history of Venice happened in November 1966. The water level then rose almost 194 centimetres above normal. The entire St. Mark's Square was underwater, the first floors of most houses were flooded, and priceless works of art, books, manuscripts and household items were irrevocably destroyed or seriously damaged. This catastrophic event forced Italy and the whole world to look differently at the problem of Venice. After the flood of 1966, the Italian government declared Venice a national treasure in need of protection. Long disputes began about exactly how to save the city. Scientists, engineers, politicians, and public figures could not reach an agreement for decades. Some proposed raising the embankments and first floors of buildings. Others talked about mobile barriers at the entrances to the lagoon. Others insisted on a radical revision of the very concept of life in the city. The frequency of floods in Venice has noticeably increased over recent decades. If at the beginning of the 20th century, acqua alta happened several times a year, by the end of the same century, this phenomenon began to occur dozens of times annually. In separate years, the number of floods exceeded 100 in 12 months. Venetians are forced to keep special rubber boots and wooden walkways at home to move along flooded streets. The sea level rise associated with climate change makes the situation even more alarming. Scientists have calculated that during the 20th century, the sea level in the Adriatic rose by about 12 centimetres. Forecasts for the future are even less encouraging. If greenhouse gas emissions do not decrease, by the end of the 21st century, the sea level may rise by another half metre or more. For Venice, which is already very low, even a few additional centimetres mean a sharp deterioration of the situation. In 1984, the Italian Parliament passed a special law on the protection of Venice. After years of research and debate, in 2003, the construction of a system of mobile barriers, named Mose, finally started. This word is an abbreviation for the Italian name, which can be translated as Experimental Electromechanical Module. Moreover, it is consonant with the name of the biblical prophet Moses, who, according to legend, parted the waters of the sea. The Mose system is an engineering structure that had no analogues in the world at the time construction started. It consists of 78 huge metal shields that, in an inactive state, rest on the bottom of the lagoon in special concrete boxes. These shields are installed in 3 passages between the lagoon and the open sea, through which seawater enters Venice. At the threat of flooding, the shields rise and block these passages. Each of the metal shields of the Mose system has impressive dimensions. The width of one shield is about 20 metres. The height, depending on the depth of the passage, is from 18 to 28 metres, and the thickness is about 4 metres. When the shield lies on the bottom, its cavity is filled with water. To raise it, the water is replaced with compressed air. Under the action of the air, the shield floats up, turning on a hinge and stands vertically, creating a barrier for sea waves. The Mose system protects 3 sea passages into the lagoon, at the island of Lido, at the island of Malamocco, and at the island of Chioggia. Each of these passages has its own characteristics, different width and depth, different nature of currents. Therefore, the shields in each of the passages differ slightly in size and are arranged in several rows to form a reliable barrier, even with strong sea waves. The construction of Mose dragged on for many years and was accompanied by numerous scandals. It was originally planned to complete the work by 2011. However, the deadlines were pushed back again and again. The cost of the project steadily grew and eventually exceeded €6 billion, which is significantly more than the original estimates. To top it all off, in 2014, a large-scale corruption scandal broke out. Several officials and contractors were arrested on charges of embezzlement of public funds. Despite all the delays and scandals, the Mose system was finally put into operation. The first full-scale test took place in October 2020 during a severe flood. The shields rose and held back the water, while outside the lagoon, the sea level exceeded 130 centimetres. Inside the city, it remained at a quite acceptable level. For Venetians, this became a real celebration. For the first time in many years, they saw real protection. Since then, the Mose system has been used dozens of times. The shields are raised when forecasters predict a water rise above 110 centimetres. The decision to turn on the system is made in advance, usually 4 or 5 hours before the expected peak tide. During this time, the shields have time to rise, and ships in the lagoon have time to anchor or go into port. Environmentalists and scientists have mixed feelings about the Mose system. The main fear is that closed barriers disrupt the natural water exchange between the lagoon and the sea. The Venice lagoon is a unique ecosystem, home to hundreds of species of fish, birds, and other animals. When the shields are closed, the water in the lagoon is not renewed. If the barriers remain closed too often or for too long, the lagoon may begin to become polluted and its ecosystem may suffer. Venice faces another serious problem. A huge flow of tourists destroys it no worse than floods. Every year, from 20 to 25 million people come to the city, whereas less than 50,000 permanent residents remained here. Although in the 50s of the last century, there were almost 180,000 of them. Tourist flows and huge cruise ships, which until recently entered right into the lagoon, raised waves that destroyed the banks of canals and the foundations of houses. The subsidence of the soil under Venice continues today, although much more slowly than in the last century. The reason is not only the weight of the buildings, but also geological processes in the earth crust. The soil in the lagoon consists of alternating layers of clay, sand, and silt. Under centuries of pressure from buildings and its own weight, these layers gradually compact, and the Earth's surface slowly but steadily sinks down. To understand the scale of the problem, it is enough to look at old photographs and compare them with what is visible in Venice today. In the images of the beginning of the 20th century, the first steps of many buildings descending to the water clearly rise above the surface. Today, these steps have completely gone underwater. According to various estimates, over the last century, Venice has sunk relative to sea level by about 30 centimetres, if taking into account both soil subsidence and water rise. Italian authorities and the city administration of Venice are taking other measures to protect the city, in addition to the Mose system. In a number of areas, the reinforcement of embankments and canal banks is being carried out. Some squares were slightly raised with the help of a special bedding. The first floors of many historic buildings are being waterproofed, so that water does not penetrate into the walls and destroy foundations. All these are important measures, but they are all partial in nature and do not solve the problem as a whole. The weak points of the Mose system are well known to specialists. First, the shields are designed for a maximum water rise of about 3 metres. If the sea level continues to grow, as some climatologists predict, this margin may turn out to be insufficient in just a few decades. Second, metal structures constantly in seawater are subject to corrosion and require continuous technical maintenance. Keeping the Mose system in working order is very expensive. According to available data, annual maintenance costs amount to tens of millions of euros. The hinges and mechanisms holding the shields work in difficult conditions. Seawater, mollusks, algae, and marine life constantly clog moving parts. In addition, metal in salt water rusts significantly faster than in air, and shields require regular inspection and repair. Some scientists wonder, does Mose not form a false sense of security for Venice? If the city is reliably protected from floods, residents and authorities may stop thinking about other measures and about the long-term future. Meanwhile, it is a long-term strategy that Venice needs most right now. No barriers will be able to hold back the sea forever if the water level rises and the city itself continues to settle. Another serious problem is related to what happens to the lagoon during the closure of the shields. Modern shields are designed to hold water for several hours, a maximum of a day. But even such relatively short closures affect the ecosystem of the lagoon. Fish and other marine inhabitants are deprived of their usual migration routes. Pollutants that are normally carried out by the sea current begin to accumulate in the lagoon. The question of what will happen to Venice if nothing is undertaken sounds rhetorical, but the answer to it is quite concrete. Without protection and without serious measures to combat subsidence and sea level rise, the city will be flooded more and more often and deeper. Priceless works of art, frescoes, mosaics, sculptures, will be destroyed under the influence of saltwater. Living in such a city will become increasingly difficult, and the already decreasing population will continue to shrink. Historians and restorers are sounding the alarm. Saltwater has already caused huge damage to the buildings of Venice. The salt that water leaves in the pores of brick and stone crystallizes and literally tears the material from the inside. This process is called salt weathering. Many ancient buildings have already suffered from it so much that their restoration requires colossal efforts and funds. Every new flood accelerates this destructive process. The most serious test for Venice in recent history was the flood in November 2019. The water level rose to almost 187 centimetres, which was the second largest flood in the entire history of observations. The Mose system was not yet fully ready for work then, and the city was defenceless. The famous St. Mark Basilica was damaged. Its historic mosaic floors were flooded. St. Mark Basilica, the main cathedral of Venice, has experienced floods repeatedly in its history, but it was the flooding of 2019 that caused its special damage. The cathedral is almost 1,000 years old. Its floors are laid with the finest mosaic of thousands of pieces of smalt and marble. Salt water penetrated under the mosaic tiles, washed away the mortar on which they were held, and caused bulging and destruction of the unique coating. Restoration will take many years. Not only the basilica, but also thousands of residential houses, small churches, workshops, and shops in Venice suffer losses with every serious flood. Owners of such buildings are forced to invest significant funds in the protection of their property. Some install metal shields in doorways and special pumps. But all these measures only reduce losses, not eliminating the problem itself. Scientists from different countries are actively studying the situation with Venice, because it serves as a kind of model for many coastal cities of the planet. Bangkok, Jakarta, Shanghai, Rotterdam, Miami, New York, and many other cities are also facing the threat of flooding due to sea level rise and ground subsidence. How Italy handles the problem of Venice is being carefully studied all over the world to apply this experience in other places. One of the key lessons of Venice for other cities is that a technical solution in itself cannot solve the problem without accompanying changes in lifestyle and policy. It is possible to protect a city from the sea with mechanical barriers, but it is impossible to simultaneously allow its settlement, lagoon pollution, unlimited tourism, and a decrease in the number of permanent residents. All these problems are interconnected, and they need to be solved in a complex way. In recent years, the city authorities of Venice have seriously taken up the regulation of tourism. Restrictions have been introduced on the entry of large cruise ships into the lagoon. A system of paid visiting of the historic centre of the city for one-day tourists is being discussed and partially implemented. The goal is to stop the turning of Venice into an attraction city, where there is no place for real life, and to preserve it as a living settlement with permanent residents. The demographic situation in Venice causes no less concern than the threat of floods. Due to constant flooding, high housing prices, and the inconvenience of life in a city on the water, young people and families with children are leaving it first of all. Mostly elderly Venetians remain, who are held here by attachment to their native places as well as the tourism business. If the outflow of population does not stop, in a few decades, Venice risks turning into an uninhabited, open-air museum. Among scientists, there are also those who believe that Venice, in its current form, cannot be saved in the long term. In their opinion, in the most unfavourable scenario, by the end of the 21st or at the beginning of the 22nd century, a significant part of the city will be permanently underwater. Such forecasts sound catastrophic, but scientists insist that they need to be taken seriously and prepared for various scenarios of development of events. Other specialists are more optimistic. They remind that Venice has been going through crises, floods, epidemics, wars, political upheavals for many centuries, and every time it survived and was reborn. The Mose system gives the city a time buffer necessary for the development and implementation of longer-term protection measures. Technologies do not stand still, and in the coming decades, new solutions may appear that we do not even suspect today. One of the promising directions is the technology of pumping water under the lagoon bottom. Italian scientists proposed an idea. If seawater is forced under pressure under the soft ground of the lagoon, it can slow down or even stop the subsidence of the city. Small experiments conducted in the 2000s showed encouraging results. In places of water injection, the ground surface rose by several centimetres. However, the full-scale application of this technology throughout the city still remains a matter of the future. Architectural adaptation of buildings to the conditions of a constant threat of flooding is also part of the city survival strategy. Some homeowners are already moving electrical panels, heating boilers, and other important equipment from the first floors to the upper ones. The first floors of a number of buildings are intentionally left uninhabited or used for storage, knowingly knowing that they will be regularly flooded. This is not a victory over the sea, but a sensible adaptation to reality. The monitoring and early warning system in Venice is one of the best in the world. A special service, called the Centre for Tidewater Forecasting and Warning, monitors the water level in the lagoon and in the sea around the clock. Forecasters analyse data on wind, pressure and tides, and issue forecasts for several days ahead. Water level sensors are installed throughout the city, and the warning system includes special sirens warning citizens of an impending flood. Venetians have developed a special culture of attitude towards water over the centuries. They perceive it not only as a threat, but also as part of their identity, part of the special atmosphere of the city. Gondolas, longboats, boats, rowing races, sea festivals, all this is an integral part of city life. Even acqua alta is perceived by local residents with a certain amount of humour and calm. Put on boots, laid out walkways, and we live on. But maintaining this calm is becoming increasingly difficult today. The international community provides significant support to Venice. The city is included in the UNESCO World Heritage List, and this organisation closely monitors its condition. Many foreign foundations, private companies and governments allocate funds for the restoration of Venetian cultural monuments. French, American, German and other organisations have been financing work on the preservation of frescoes, paintings, sculptures and architectural monuments of the city for several decades. The discussion about the future of Venice does not subside among the Italians themselves either. Some believe that everything possible should be done to preserve the city in its current form, regardless of the costs. Others believe that the money invested in the protection of Venice is more sensible to direct to helping other Italian cities suffering from natural disasters, earthquakes, landslides, floods. Still others wonder, is it not easier to move the residents and the most important cultural values to the mainland? The idea of moving or evacuating Venice, of course, sounds absurd. It is impossible to move the Grand Canal, St. Mark's Square, the Basilica, palaces, bridges. All this forms a single ensemble, the value of which is precisely in the inseparable connection of architecture, water, history, and real life. Venice without Venetians, without fish markets, without master glass blowers from Murano Island, without gondoliers will turn into just a beautiful postcard, and not into a living city. The production of the famous Venetian glass on Murano Island is an example of how traditional crafts fight for survival in conditions of a constant threat of floods and population outflow. Master glassblowers have been passing on their art from generation to generation for 8 centuries. However, today, young people often prefer to leave for the mainland in search of a calmer and more predictable life. If the masters leave, a unique craft may disappear with them. The Venetian carnival mask and costume production, lace making on Murano Island, the gondola trade. All these are living traditions existing precisely because people live in the city. These traditions can be preserved only by preserving the city itself as a place for life and not only for tourism. In this sense, the fight against floods and the fight for the social revival of Venice are two sides of the same coin. Among the measures being discussed to stimulate the return of people to Venice are tax breaks for families with children, subsidies for home restoration, the creation of new jobs not related to tourism. Some politicians propose introducing strict restrictions on the conversion of residential premises into short-term rentals for tourists, because it was this that largely displaced permanent residents from the historic centre. An important direction of work to save Venice is the restoration and reinforcement of the buildings themselves. Many houses in the city need urgent repair of foundations. The wooden stilts on which they stand, although surprisingly strong, are still not eternal. Some of them have been serving for 800, 900, and even more years. The condition of the stilts can only be checked with the help of special probes that are immersed in the ground near the building. If the stilts have become unusable, they are reinforced or replaced, which is an extremely difficult and expensive task. The problem of Venice also touches upon a broader question: who bears responsibility for the fate of world heritage? Venice belongs to Italy, but its value belongs to all of humanity. This means that the responsibility for its preservation should, in the opinion of many experts, be distributed more widely. However, international treaties in this area are still far from obliging states to actually finance the protection of World Heritage sites in other countries. Climate policy is directly linked to the fate of Venice. Every ton of carbon dioxide emitted into the atmosphere accelerates the melting of glaciers and the rise of world ocean levels. This makes the future of Venice directly dependent on decisions made in Washington, Beijing, Moscow, Delhi, and other world capitals. Inaction in the field of climate policy means that no technical protection will save the city if the sea level rises faster than expected. It is also important to understand that Mose, no matter how well it works, is not a final solution to the problem. The creators of the system, and the Italian authorities themselves, admit, at current rates of sea level rise and ground subsidence, the system will be able to protect Venice only until the middle, at best until the end of the 21st century. After that, the barriers will turn out to be too low. This means that even now it is necessary to think about what will replace Mose. Some experts suggest during the next modernisation of the system to make the shields higher so that they could hold higher waves. Others say that a fundamentally different concept of protection is needed. Not just barriers at the entrances to the lagoon, but a complex system of dams, pumps, and elevated platforms capable of protecting each individual island and neighbourhood. This will require investments comparable to those already invested in Mose, and possibly significantly greater. Venice and the Mose system attract the attention of engineers and environmentalists from all over the world, also because they provide a unique experience of interaction with a mobile, complex marine environment. Nowhere in the world before had anything similar been built in such conditions. a shallow lagoon with variable currents, high water salinity, active marine life, historic buildings around. Every technical solution here had to be developed practically from scratch, and every difficulty provided new knowledge. Fishermen and residents of small islands in the Venice lagoon treat Mose differently. Some are happy with the protection from floods that drowned their houses too. Others complain that with closed shields there is less fish in the lagoon and boats cannot freely go out to sea. Small fishing communities on the islands of Pellestrina and Chioggia live by their own laws, and their opinion is not always taken into account when making city and state decisions. Venice looks into the future with hope and concern at the same time. Hope is associated with the fact that technologies and international support give the city a chance. Concern with the fact that threats, primarily climatic ones, are growing faster than decisions are made. But Venice has already gone through times when its end seemed inevitable. And every time there were people who did not agree with this sentence and looked for a way out. It is this human persistence and ingenuity that inspires the greatest optimism. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and share your opinion in the comments.